When it rains, it pours, so they say. Not only do I currently have a Rolex Explorer to review, but I also have a Tudor Black Bay navy blue that's been on my wrist for just over a week, and it's been a very short week. Now this video is going to be lengthy. I would say probably longer than the conventional review videos, because we're not only going to talk about the watch in general, how it has been wearing, and many factors that have caught my attention, but also I want to address the videos that I made 4 months ago, I think, when this watch was initially released. I was one of the people that was very critical of this watch and hope to now substantiate those points with a little bit more detail. But first, how did this all start? I need to give a huge shout out to James of Showcase Watches for sending this watch to me. Story goes is that I actually helped influence his purchasing decision when picking up the Omega Seamaster 57 reissue. He watched my video and a few others, and because of that, he chose the watch himself. And after hearing my criticisms on this watch, he sent me a message saying basically, you have to experience it, you have to wear it to fully understand it. So the next day, he sent it to me in the post. And I really feel so privileged, and I can't thank you enough for these kinds of opportunities. It just expands my understanding of this hobby, and I hope to bring you something a bit more unique and interesting instead of the conventional discussions. The least I can do is put James's channel in the description of this video. Showcase Watches. I've been following that page for a long time. I was watching his videos 5+ years ago, just when I was getting into the hobby. So it's quite amazing how things go full circle. And again, James, thank you. So where to begin? I think before even talking about the watch and the wearing experience and all of that, let's first address the H word, hype, and how this piece really began its life and its existence. It was all over social media, it was marketed everywhere, people were buying them left, right and center. Now that it's been about 4 months, this attention seems to have simmered quite a bit, which means that we can attack this discussion from a less hype-driven perspective and something a bit more objective for a change. My main criticism about this watch was that it was just so perpetuated by this hype. It still is in many ways. Because of that, the inherent value of the piece is diminished in a way, because people are buying them because they can. Not because there's any kind of emotional attachment to them. They buy them because they're affordable, they're easy to attain. Maybe they do make a good addition to a collection, but 90% of the time they are being bought to be sold. That's just the sad reality of where we are at the moment with many of these pieces. Before sitting down to record this video, I looked back at a video I made 4 months ago about the Tudor Black Bay effect and my criticisms surrounding all of this. Also addressing design details and attributes to this watch that I hadn't seen yet because I hadn't even worn the piece. And it's quite a mind blow going back and listening to what I had to say, because a lot of those points will be mentioned here again. So if you do have the time, I recommend you have a look at it just for laughs. So someone who has experienced the Black Bay 58, the original with the gilt dial, someone who has handled vintage Tudor snowflakes, 7016s and others. What was it like? What has it been like with this watch on the wrist? There are very few pieces out there that you can pick up, wear, not even think about, that manage to fulfill all the tasks you need them to do and stay in the background. This watch has done that so well. It's been an extremely pleasurable week on the wrist, not because it's something that's vibrant, that's in your face all the time, but because it's just there. And it's so easy to understand, just by looking at that point alone, why the Black Bay line is loved by so many. It very much is, and I'm not the first person to say this, the tool watch that we all deserve. It really is not trying to be a luxury object. When you look back to the Rolex name of the 90s, you feel that same kind of feeling coming back when wearing a watch like this. The criticism that this watch gets is that it is a super homage to Rolex Submariners of the past, but after wearing it for a week, it really feels like its own watch. It is its own watch at this point. Every single element is unique to the piece. Where we look at the big crown, the case form, the bezel, the dial, the clasp, bracelet, it is so unique to Tudor's language, and it is seriously impressive. You just know when you're feeling it, wearing it, that the parts have all been considered. Manufacturing-wise, tolerances aren't up to Rolex levels yet, but are so close. Just considering how all the parts fit together, how the bracelet works, how the watch sits on the wrist, there has been so much consideration put into everything, and I cannot stress that enough. There is no better compliment than saying that it is something that just works. You're not looking for detail, you're not looking for flash factor. In its sterility, there are a few drawbacks, but overall, as an everyday wearing watch, the details that have stood out to me greatly. The bracelet and the hollow end link. The way that the end link is actually raised, how it has been CNC'd and has this elevated element in the center, is gorgeous. It's a small nuance that you don't notice unless you're wearing the watch, but makes such a difference. It's always appreciated that there is an articulating center link, which makes the wearing experience more comfortable. The bracelet itself with the rivets, the faux rivets, doesn't bother me very much. I know it does for many, but it is a part of the vintage aesthetic, so it does work pretty well. Next, to the clasp. Pros and cons here. There are aspects to this that I prefer over the Rolex clasp. The spring-loaded ceramic ball bearings that allows for the latch to close very neatly, really appreciated. But I also enjoy the fact that it's a clasp that doesn't shout for your attention. It's not trying to be overbuilt for the sake of it. It's very minimalist. And I think the best clasps are the ones that are as small and as out of the way as possible. The way the deployment works with the shield integrated into it is very nice. The drawback is that you can open this clasp very easily once the latch is opened. Without the securing latch there, it's not as efficient. This clasp also deserves an easy link or some kind of micro extension. And when we look at the way it was constructed, it seems like the formula is there. Like they have all of the components already done. The final link that connects to the clasp looks like it can be folded over, very much like how we see the EasyLink system works with the Rolex pieces. Comfort factor is superb. The watch wears incredibly well, and that in part is how the case has been done. It's not as thin and as streamlined as we would see from 5-digit Rolex sports model references. It does have a bit more stature and presence. This in a way does drive up the overall size of the watch on the wrist, but also does harken back in a way to the cushion case format. The chamfering on the lugs just completes it. Adds a little bit more of a visual complexity to the overall case, but also gives it that feeling of an artisanal quality. If we move to the bezel to see that minimalist coin edging, first impression says from a distance that it's not grippable because it's so small, but it is very tactile. I'll now try to give you a sample of what it sounds like. Excellent, detense, accurate, smooth. There is no inconsistencies here. But actually the one component that has surprised me the most on this is the crown. The threading, the unthreading is exceptionally easy. People might mock the larger crown size, but it's overbuilt for the right reasons. It feels so practical, and when we look at it relative to the size of the watch case and the dial, proportionally it looks correct. Now it's time to address the color of the watch. The blue is not the same color we would expect to see from the Omega Seamaster Professional or the Rolex Submariner, where they have a deeper royal blue finish. This is a gray blue. Best way I could describe it is, if you have blue eyes, it'll match the color very well. Now granted, when we look at the watch overall, it is sterile, it is very basic. In certain lights, especially when you're not outside or experiencing any kind of direct sunlight or fluorescence, it can be very dull. A deep navy blue bordering on black. If this watch is to see direct sunlight, however, it'll blow your mind. I don't believe many pictures can do this justice, but I have tried to capture it as best as possible. There is so much depth to the color tone used on the dial. It is very striking, no doubt. The bezel is a bit of a deeper navy color, but they do work so well in tandem. Another big bonus is the boxed sapphire crystal, which means that you can enjoy the watch in virtually any light, and you won't have to deal with many severe reflections. So if we were to look at some of the criticisms now, I've said many times it would have been so good to see this watch with a snowflake dial. It would have been able to stand head to head with the Black Bay 58 gilt dial. In some ways I feel that it is a bit of a lost opportunity not including the snowflake dial, but then with the circular plots, it does speak to the overall organic form of the case and how it works, the bracelet, other aspects. Here I was thinking, before getting the watch to wear, that the snowflake hands and that pairing with the rounded plots would feel a bit peculiar, that they wouldn't work together, that they would be polarizing. But if you treat the snowflake hand the same you do the Mercedes hour hand that we see on the Rolex variants, you get the same kind of effect. At this point we have to understand that the snowflake hand is very much Tudor's own identity, and it's what they use with their models. Does the hardness and sharpness of these hands actually work with the rounded elements on the dial? It does, to an extent. I would very much like to see a snowflake dial, just for the sake of comparison, but it's very good. As far as I'm concerned, after wearing this watch for a week, I could happily add this to my collection. I think the blue of this piece, paired with the black of the Seamaster that I own, would make such an excellent two-watch diver collection. There is enough of a difference between them that you can enjoy them both for different occasions and different reasons. And in a way, that's what's really helped rationalize my thinking around this piece. Comparing it to my other beloved diver and seeing how it stacks up. Try as I might, it is very difficult to bash this watch. The price you are paying, the quality build, the in-house movement. There are so many pros to this. The only downside to this piece that I have discovered is that you're spending quite a lot of money for a watch that is very sterile. By sterile, I mean it's not something that jumps out at you. It very much isn't designed to jump out at you, but made to be something that you can efficiently wear every day that doesn't draw attention. A sentence that came to mind yesterday that I put down, I said, a watch that is not governed so much by its brand name, but more by its build quality, movement accuracy, and normality. The big question that deserves to be asked is, does this watch deserve to be in your collection? And on this occasion, whether you are new to this hobby, whether you are experienced, I say yes. Disregard the hype, disregard the retail games. This is a fantastic watch, purely because of its relative accessibility, because it is unique to the brand where it comes from, that it has been able to address many things that other watches in its sister company still doesn't do, and an excellent, purpose-built, modern-day tool watch that we all deserve.